So what should Rams and Seahawks fans be looking for in the Week 18 finale and the Pro Bowl snubs? That's coming up next on this crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and what is up, 12? And welcome to another edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks, a crossover edition here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available on YouTube, so if you haven't yet joined the party, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, and drop your predictions down below. My name is Doug McKain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade. I do NFL radio for Westwood One. You can follow me at DMac_LA. And today I'm joined by the Locked On Seahawks reporter and host of his own show on the Seahawks. You know him, you love him, Mr. Corbin Smith. You can follow him at Corbin Smith NFL. And a reminder that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to use $50 off instantly when you play $5. Now, Corbin, not a lot to play for in this one for both teams. As far as playoff implications, none of that. The Seahawks have been eliminated. The Rams have clinched the NFC West. They will be sitting their starters. But I kind of want to start with just your outlook of the Seahawks heading into this game. You mentioned them having their starters available. They are a 6.5-point favorite on FanDuel. Just kind of what is the outlook and just the general vibe of this team heading into their Week 18 finale?
Obviously, there's plenty of disappointment that this game has absolutely no value, because if a few other teams could have done their part, then obviously this game would still be the NFC West championship game. But the Seahawks have nobody to blame but themselves. When you lose to the New York Giants at home, of all places, you don't deserve to make the postseason. And that was the issue this year. There were just too many times where this team was not able to consistently play at a high level, particularly on the offensive side of the football. So as far as the outlook, they've been positive in their press conferences. Mike McDonald's still looking at it. Hey, we can get to 10 wins, which they haven't done since 2020. So they still have a chance to show progress from those 2 9-8 seasons the last couple of years. They've got a bunch of players that have a chance to set career milestones. In the case of Geno Smith, he can make up to $6 million in this game with the incentive-based escalators he has in his contract. So there's going to be plenty to play for on that front. But obviously in the standings, and even with draft positioning, the highest the Seahawks can draft is 16th. So even if fans want him to tank in this game, that would be if every other domino fell their way. Most likely they're going to be picking 18th, the last spot for a non-playoff team, because they won too many games ultimately to do much better. So it's really a difficult spot if you're a fan. You're like, we can't get a higher pick most likely. We can't make the playoffs. We truly are that last middle-of-the-road team, and that's always difficult for fans to deal with, especially when the Seahawks have kind of been in this 9 to 10 win purgatory here for the last now 3 seasons.
Yeah, on the Rams end, really that overtime victory for LA when Demarcus Robinson made that catch in overtime, walk-off style, that really was kind of one of the first signs that, okay, this Rams team is going to overcome this 1-4 deficit, make a run at the playoffs like they did last season. And as far as going up and down, it's not about draft order for the Rams, it's about seeding. And as it stands right now, the Rams are the number 3 seed. And as the number 3 seed, they would face either the Green Bay Packers or the Washington Commanders. They will host a playoff game at SoFi Stadium for the wild card round. But if they lose to the Seahawks on Sunday and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the New Orleans Saints, they will fall to the number 4 seed, where they're going to host either the Vikings or the Lions. So really the conversation Rams land this week was, would Sean McVay play his starters? Well, if you know anything about Sean McVay, you knew that that was probably not even a thought that was entertained even for a split second. The value rest, and with Matthew Stafford having played every single snap this season, there was no way that they were going to risk having Matthew Stafford under center when you already have that division locked up. So, look, I know that you got a difference of opponents that could be significant. I mean, Lions, the Vikings, two of the best teams in the NFC, to the best teams in the NFL, quite frankly. The Lions have been a sexy pick to win the Super Bowl this season. But the truth is, and Corbin, I just kind of want to know where you stand on this, just as a fan of the NFL, you can't duck anyone. You can't duck anyone. You're going to eventually play a great opponent, even in that wild card round. But do you agree with Sean McVay's decision to sit his starters in Week 18?
Yeah, I think that this is a no-brainer. And look, I know Green Bay lost to Minnesota last week. They made that furious comeback and almost came back to win the game. I think Green Bay is a sleeper team in the NFC. I think they could be a team that if they are playing at their best, they could run through this NFC gauntlet. Minnesota is obviously a really good football team. Detroit has got a mash unit on defense. I still have concerns. They're going to have to win shootouts every week in the playoffs, and they have the offense to do it. But I actually think the Commanders could be a really dangerous team in the postseason, too. And Jaden Daniels, he's the truth. He is and I love watching that guy play. And they've got a defense that's improved. Dan Quinn's got that team completely bought in. So you're at the stage of the season. I don't think 3 versus 4 there. If you advance, you're going to be playing the top seed anyway. So unless the second seed gets upset, obviously, but you're going to be playing the top seed. To me, you keep your starters healthy so that you have them full gear for whoever you're playing against.
100%. You had an early bye to begin with. You've been playing a lot of meaningful football for a long time. Just the cons definitely outweigh any of the pros, right? I mean, you definitely want to stay healthy. By the way, I just want to say, as a fan of the NBA, as someone who wants to see a team returning to a city, I've always wanted the Seattle Supersonics to get back to Seattle. That's something that I definitely yearn for. Sean Kemp, Gary Payton, those uniforms. Seattle needs the Supersonics back. But I just want to point something out. The playoffs, the Rams have made the playoffs now 6 times. 6 times since returning to LA. That's more than the St. Louis Rams made. The Rams made the playoffs 5 times. So kind of just getting back to just kind of where this Rams team is. Are you surprised? I mean, as far as your surprise factor, I mean, you're so locked into this division. We did the preview show. I picked the Rams to win. Yeah, I was wearing my Rams Royal in Soul color glasses during that show. Thankfully, it did work out. But what is your surprise level at the fact the Rams ultimately did win the NFC West?
I'm not surprised by it, especially with the injuries that hit the 49ers. And look, the Cardinals, I don't know that Kyler Murray can be the guy to elevate that team to being more than a middling team. I just don't know if he's the guy to do it. And I think they've got a lot of other intriguing pieces there in Arizona. And they nearly pulled off that win last week against the Rams that would have made this game that we're talking about a lot more interesting. But it just seems like Arizona just consistently comes up short, no pun intended there, with Kyler Murray playing under center. But I'm not surprised that the Rams ended up winning this division, especially you look at what the Seahawks offense did this year. I still believe that this should be a top 10 scoring offense in the NFL with the pieces that they have. And I just don't feel like it's worked out with the new coordinator, Ryan Grubb. And the offensive line, as it has been for the last 15 years, is terrible. And they just have not been able to draft or develop offensive linemen. And so same issues crop up. You put your quarterback in a spot where he has no running game. The offense, to me, is the reason that this game is irrelevant in Week 18. Because the Seahawks, if their offense was a little bit better, they would have won a couple more of these games. They might have been the Vikings a couple weeks ago, and we'd be having a much different discussion. But they, more than anybody else, hurt themselves with self-inflicted mistakes this year. And this was the prime opportunity to win the division, and they just didn't take advantage of it, and the Rams did. And that was the difference. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it does come as a shocker. I mean, that team's loaded with talent. Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf. You got Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, UCLA Bruin. I mean, Geno Smith, the year you had. It is surprising to see this offense in Seattle just not click like we all expected them to click. And you look at the defense that they had for a good portion of this season. This was supposed to be that Week 18 showdown to determine who wins this division. But if you're a Rams fan, you'll definitely take it. If you're a Seahawks fan, it's definitely very frustrating. But coming up next, we are talking about the Pro Bowl snubs for the Rams. We'll talk some Pro Bowl. That's coming up next here on a crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks. All right, so my favorite thing is attending live events, whether that be sports, comedy, music. There's nothing better than being there to see the real thing. In Los Angeles, you got the Rams, you got the Lakers, you got the Clippers. I was at the Rose Bowl yesterday. Seattle, there's so many things to do. The Kraken, concerts, the Seahawks. You know, all these great events, but you need a ticket. Now, where do you get those tickets? Game Time. Put the Game Time app on your phone because Game Time makes getting tickets to live events even easier than ever before. Game Time takes all the fluff away to show you only the incredible deals on great seats. So you don't have to waste your time looking at thousands of tickets. You want to go see the Rams, the Lakers, Game Time has you covered. And the closer you get to Game Time, the actual Game Time, the lower the price they're going to get. So put the Game Time app on your phone. Curation makes it easy to save on sports, comedy, concerts, anything that's going on in your area. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account. Terms apply. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? Game time. And we are off and running here on this crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks. By the way, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks. And you can join that Everyday Listeners Club too. Membership is 100% free. In fact, you should make it your New Year's resolution to listen to and watch every episode of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks, hosted by Corbin Smith. So definitely go and do that. But Corbin, here in our second segment, switching gears because some of these matchups really are they worth getting into, right? I mean, a lot of these topics, these storylines heading into this game where really it's just about kind of getting to the playoffs if you are the Rams and the Seahawks really just finish up their season. We're going to switch gears a little bit, talk some Pro Bowl because a lot of Rams fans are not happy today. And make of what you will about the Pro Bowl. And the fact that Travis Kelce makes it this year kind of tells you the power of the Swifties and the fact that he really does deserve to be in the Pro Bowl. But still, the Rams get one Pro Bowler, and that is their rookie, Jared Verse. And you look at this team that won the division, Matthew Stafford, he doesn't make the Pro Bowl, which is understandable, but Kyren Williams, 1,299 yards, 14 touchdowns. Puka Nacua had 990 yards in just 11 games. Kevin Dotson, one of the anchors of their offensive line, he doesn't make it. On the defensive side, you got Cam Kinchins. He had 4 interceptions. I mean, he deserves some consideration. Kobe Turner, 8 sacks from the defensive tackle spot. Braden Fisk had 8 sacks. Ethan Evans, how about the punter? I'll take a punter who led the NFL with a 54.7% of his punts being down the 20, inside the 20. He doesn't make it. So just one Pro Bowler for the Rams and Jared Verse. But where were the Seahawks at as far as their Pro Bowlers, and were there any stumps for them?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because normally when we have this conversation on Locked On Seahawks, it usually about 2 minutes in goes into, I really don't care about this. And that's the honest truth, because there was a time when the actual Pro Bowl game was still going on and guys played hard. Believe it or not, there was a time that happened. Late 90s, early 2000s, those Pro Bowl games were thrilling. And then obviously that changed and it became glorified flag football. So now they're just doing a flag football game. But still, these Pro Bowl rosters still carry a lot of weight with NFL players. It's something to put on your resume. And it's something that you can use in contract time. And so it still has significance, even if you don't really care about the Pro Bowl games, which they now call. But Seattle had the same situation as the Rams. They had one player selected, and I at least think on the defensive side of the ball, Seattle's got a couple guys that can make really strong arguments. If we're going to talk snubs, and again, I normally don't dive too much into this because I'm like, it's the Pro Bowl, whoop-de-doo, but I'm going to get a little bit irate here in this particular segment because how is Leonard Williams not in the Pro Bowl? Leonard Williams leads all defensive tackles in the NFL with 9 sacks. He leads all NFL defensive tackles in quarterback hits. He has 52 pressures this year. He has a pick 6. It was a 90-plus yard pick 6 at 300 pounds against Aaron Rodgers earlier this year. He's got a career high in tackles for loss. To me, not only should he be a Pro Bowler, he should be in the discussion for Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, his stat line is insane, and the stuff that he has done when he hasn't been racking up sacks and tackles, that is the one guy. He told reporters today he was disappointed not to be in the Pro Bowl. He was upset about it. I don't blame him. Like, he's been picked for the Pro Bowl once in his entire career. because he played for bad football teams. And yeah, I know Seattle didn't make the playoffs, but it's still a winning football team. I don't understand how Leonard Williams is not on the Pro Bowl roster. Devin Witherspoon, who got selected, absolutely deserved it. He's somebody that transcends his statistics. And I guarantee when Sean McVay is game planning for the Seahawks, that is the first player, maybe Leonard Williams, but the first player he's going to be looking at game planning is number 21, because Witherspoon is a game wrecker. But I feel like Leonard Williams absolutely deserved to be on that roster. There's some really good defensive linemen that made it in the NFC, but they don't have the numbers that stack up with Leonard Williams, and he's just been utterly dominant. Julian Love, you could make some cases for. Ernest Jones has played really well since the Seahawks got him, former Ram. Offensively, I don't feel like, unless Jackson Smith-Njigba gets in the roster and receivers so deep, that I'm okay with him not being on there. But that just tells you the state of Seattle's offense. I don't really have any beefs because nobody really deserved it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would be absolutely infuriated like you are if Leonard Williams was on my team and he didn't make it. Because, I mean, Jalen Carter making over him, I think, is a pretty surprising to see. But I also think, too, I mean, look, like you said it best. I mean, it really is a popularity contest at the end of the day. And the fact that the fans are involved. I mean, the Lions fans, the Eagles fans, they really showed out. The Swifties really showed out. I mean, that's certainly an element to it. But like you pointed out, I mean, it's not nothing. I mean, show me one NFL player that doesn't want you to go to their Wikipedia page and see how many Pro Bowls they made, right? Or go to their Football Reference page, how many Pro Bowls they made. Of course, we know that all pro really is the standard that you want to set, but still, I mean, Pro Bowls and getting recognition definitely is a boost of confidence. I think too for young players too. You mentioned Jackson Smith-Njigba. I mean, I was at the Rose Bowl yesterday, and they showed his highlights against Utah back in 2022 about 15 million times going up and down that field. I mean, he's clearly someone who's emerging as a top 10 to 15 receiver in this league. Someone like that gets a Pro Bowl nod, you feel a little more confidence. But yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the game has lost its luster for sure. But yeah, some definitely surprising developments for both teams. But as far as this Seahawks team and heading into this one, is there a young player that you are kind of looking at to say, okay, you have a really good game in your season finale, you can take that confidence in the offseason? Any kind of storylines like that you're looking for specific players and how they finish their season if they do it strong?
It's all about Seattle's rookie class, Doug. Byron Murphy II has been way better than his numbers indicate.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the sack numbers. The pressures have not necessarily been there, but he's been a really good player for the Seahawks this year when he's been healthy. He missed a couple games early in the year, but when he's been in the lineup, he's been a big part of their run defense, fixing things up in the second half. I want to see him get after Jimmy Garoppolo a little bit in this finale. And their linebacker, Tyrese Knight, next to Ernest Jones, that really was the catalyst that transformed this defense to being a top 5 scoring defense the last 8 games. Getting those two together, they've really complemented each other. Tyrese Knight is one of those guys, he gets his hands on you, you're going down. He just doesn't miss tackles very often. He's got some pass rushing ability. He has been able to do some things in coverage. He's a plus athlete for the position. He's played well. I just want to see him ball out in this finale. Both those guys carried in. A.J. Barner on offense at tight end has had a surprisingly good year. More catches than I ever thought he was going to have, being a blocking tight end at Michigan last year. He's shown he's more than that. So it's all about those rookies and how they can perform in this game. Maybe a guy like Oluwatimi, a second-year center, how does he look going against the Rams? Backups or whatever starters do end up playing this game. To me, it's all about evaluating those young guys, particularly when you're looking at the front 7 on defense and the offensive line up front.
Yeah, on the Rams side, I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo is a name. Jimmy Garoppolo is a name that a lot of NFL fans are very familiar with, and he, of course, had his best seasons with the San Francisco 49ers. It's going to be very interesting to adjust to seeing him under center being the Rams quarterback on Sunday. And it's not just, okay, can he go lead this team to victory? It's, can he get the ball to some of their playmakers that could potentially get some opportunities in the playoffs? Guys like Tutu Atwell, that brings a dynamic to this offense where he has speed. He has proven that he can make sure-handed catches over the middle at times as well. I mean, you look at their playoff loss to the Lions last season. Hey, Tutu Atwell had a big touchdown in that game. So, I mean, can you get some confidence to guys like that who are not going to be your starters necessarily, but guys that could get an opportunity in those playoff games? And I think, too, you mentioned rookies. The Rams, they took Blake Corbin in the third round, a rookie out of Michigan. He was fantastic in his college career. It still is Kyren Williams' backfield, almost 1,300 yards rushing. He's going to get a lion's share of the snaps there. But Blake Corum definitely brings that bowling ball style of rushing, especially inside the red zone. So to get him some confidence and see what he can show this team, look, I guarantee you if he has a big game against the Seattle team that has proven to do well, especially if they're going with a lot of their starters, I'm sure that sends a message to the coaches that, hey, you can mix me in to that rotation a little bit. So having fresh legs from your running back spot could be big too. So really not a ton to look for as far as the young guys getting opportunities, but there are certainly reasons, especially because you're hardcore fans, to make sure you're paying attention to this game. But coming up next, we got some keys to victory. I don't know if Corbin's throwing out a prediction, but we'll continue this breakdown of the game that was supposed to be for the division championship, but it is taking on a different storyline since then. But that's coming up next on a crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks. All right, let's talk about FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start this year with a big return on FanDuel, of course, America's #1 sports book. Now, if you get a hunch in the middle of the game and you think now may not be a bad time to get in there and check out all the latest stats, go to FanDuel. You can view all the live play-by-play. Of course, there's so much more on the same page where you're placing your bet. So we're going to get started at FanDuel with $200 in bonus bets that's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Let me say that again. $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Now, let's take a look at what's going on this weekend. Rams, Seahawks, Week 18 season finale. The Rams 6.5-point home underdogs, resting their starters, going up against Seattle. There's this and so much more over at FanDuel.com. So download the FanDuel app today on your phone, and they're going to get you started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. And welcome back to a crossover edition of Locked On Rams and Locked On Seahawks. Now, here in our third segment, as far as keys to victory, I mean, it's tough to truly evaluate when you're seeing a completely different roster for the Rams in this one. But I think that it's going to kind of come down to on the Rams end. I mean, where are the Seahawks at this one? I mean, how important do you think it is for the Seahawks to, like you said, get double-digit wins and go into the offseason with at least a happy flight home, right? Just feeling good about the fact that you did end the year on a winning note.
Yeah, I think it's still an important game from that standpoint. And I think that especially your veterans on the roster, the Leonard Williamses, the Geno Smiths of the world, like, they don't want to go into the offseason with a bad taste in their mouth. Like, they want to at least have their heads held high. Hey, let's go win a football game. Let's go to 4-2 in the NFC West, which they went 2-4 against the division last year. So you want to have as many signs of progress as you can coming out of year one under Mike Macdonald. So I'm expecting this still a game that they're going to be taking very seriously. Mike Macdonald's made it clear that's going to be the case. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot to play for from individual accolades. And when you put those together, it can help from a team standpoint to win games. As far as keys to this game, look, I could say that you should run the football, but I'm not going to do that this game because you know what? There's no playoff spot up. Ryan Grubb's shown he's not going to do it anyway. Let Geno Smith just sling the rock. And you know what? If he throws a pick or two, so be it. But we're going to let him sling the rock. We're going to let him get his incentives. And the Rams are going to be playing backups in a number of key spots. Geno Smith threw for over 360 yards in the first matchup between these teams. Let's see what he can do in this game. Just let it fly. Let's get the big guys some plays, and let's end the year on a strong note. And then defensively, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's still the same guy. If you let him have a clean pocket, he can do some damage, but he's always struggled when he's been pressured. Find a way to take advantage of an offensive line that might have one or two pieces that are missing in this one. Get after Jimmy Garoppolo and hit Pretty Boy a little bit in this game. I think you do those two things with you playing your starters and the other team obviously not playing their starters. You should be able to win this one.
Yeah, I think if you're the Rams, I mean, it's kind of a culture game for you, right? I mean, you look at last season, you played Puka in the first half for a little bit so we get the record. He comes out to finish it off in the second half, and you get that win, and you still rested Mr. Matthew Stafford. So look, just because you rest your starters does not mean you can't get a win. And if you get a win, it could help you improve massive in the playoffs. So I think that this is one of those where you want to see Jimmy Garoppolo comfortable in executing that offense. You want to see balance. And if this game's close, if the Rams have an opportunity to win it, then the focus really becomes, hey, I would much rather play a team like the Commanders, who, as good as Jaden Daniels is, he is the real deal. He is going to be a star in this league for a long time. He's still a rookie quarterback coming on the road to win a playoff game. I would much rather face off against the Commanders than the Vikings, than the Lions. I think the Packers, like you said, are an extremely very talented and dangerous team that is going to have to be dealt with, and they beat the Rams earlier this season. But yeah, I think that the deeper you get into this game where it still feels winnable, I think you're a Rams team that really wants to show what this culture is all about, is that, hey, it's whoever's in there is going to go out there, it's going to play with maximum effort, it's going to go out there and execute plays and play clean football. And I think that, yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo is someone that can have a little bit of a redemption arc in his career, right? I mean, he's someone that was looked at as a starter, and then now he's a backup. I'm sure he wants to go and show and prove to teams out there, and did prove to the Rams that, hey, look, he's someone that you can trust in those spots. So, yeah, I mean, you look at this Rams team as a whole. I mean, they win this division with the second youngest team in the National Football League after a 1-4 start, and then the second most difficult schedule in the league. So you consider all those things, the odds were kind of stacked against them to even make the playoffs, and now they're a home underdog playing with backup. So it just feels like this team with McVay, like they just veer on the side of winning. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Rams were to win this one. But I want to ask you, Corbin, with the rest of the way, I know you're a big football guy, Super Bowl wise, are you going to be rooting for your NFC West team and the Rams in the Super Bowl? I mean, to go to the Super Bowl, I mean, where do you think the NFC goes as far as how it plays out? Do you think the Rams have a chance at a deep run? You going to pull for us? You going to pull for the Rams? And where are you at with that?
I don't really have any allegiances. I mean, I know Seahawks fans would love for me to just say, oh, I'm not rooting for the Rams because they're an NFC West foe. But look, I just want to see good football. And at the end of the day, I mentioned the team earlier. I know they lost last week, but Green Bay is a team that I feel like is equipped to make a run in the playoffs. I could see Green Bay getting to the NFC Championship game and maybe even the Super Bowl if everything falls right, because I like the way that they run the football. I like their defense. They create a lot of turnovers. The Rams are a team that I'm not necessarily sure what to expect, and that's really been the NFC West this year. If you get the Rams at their very best, can they win a few playoff games? Absolutely. I could also see them getting boat raced by somebody like Washington if they don't play their game. And that's kind of been the way that the NFC West has gone this year. So if you're asking as far as who I think is going to be winning the Super Bowl, I don't have that team coming from the NFC. I think there's some pretty good teams. If Detroit was fully healthy, or at least somewhat healthy on defense, I might lean that direction. But at some point, Lamar Jackson is going to get a Super Bowl. I think it's going to be this year. I think Baltimore, with Derrick Henry now in that backfield, and Zay Flowers emerging as a number one target, I think Baltimore is the team that's going to be hoisting the Lombardi when it's all said and done. So no rooting interest here, just what I've seen this year. I just think Baltimore, they've lost some games, but it feels like they're playing at their best right now. And Lamar Jackson's a video game. I think Baltimore wins it this year.
Really interesting. Yeah, no, I was on a show where I was forced to make a Super Bowl pick, and I couldn't pick the Rams, right? Because it can't be a homer, right? And I had the Bills over the Packers during the preseason.
Buffalo's the other team that I would have in that discussion. Absolutely.
At some point, the Bills have to win the Super Bowl. I mean, I guess they don't have to, but I mean, from a roster standpoint, it just maybe Josh Allen playing the way he is. I would love to see Lamar Jackson get a Super Bowl at some point, and that Ravens team get over the hump. That'd be pretty fun if it weren't for the Los Angeles Rams. But yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, the NFC and the AFC, it's been an interesting year from top to bottom. I will say though that if you were to ask any of these teams in the NFC, if you were going to have their players write on a piece of paper which team they would not want to face, the Rams are one of those teams. I mean, you kind of are on a house money type season where a lot of these teams you're mentioning. I mean, it's Super Bowl window. I mean, there's a Super Bowl expectation and pressure. Rams won one a couple years ago. No, not a lot of people expected this team to win this division, let alone compete for a Super Bowl. So when you're playing like that, You combine it with the fact you have a Super Bowl winning head coach in Sean McVay, a talented Super Bowl winning quarterback that still wants to win more Super Bowls and continue to pad his Hall of Fame resume in Matthew Stafford, they could be a very, very dangerous team, and they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. But, hey, I'm with you, too, on something else you said. As far as rooting interest, it's, hey, give me the team that's trailing. You want to see good quality football. You want to see compelling matchups. I mean, if you watch all these college football matchups, have been like blowout after blowout. I was at the Rose Bowl, 31-0 at halftime, or 34-0 at halftime, lost track. But I'm with you on that one. But Corbin, thank you so much for joining us here. Locked On Rams, Locked On Seahawks crossover episode. And hey, we didn't get the matchup we thought we were getting as far as the implications, but it's the National Football League. It's a division matchup, and we know that you'll be tuned in. But that's going to do it for this episode. My name is Doug McKain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. You can follow Corbin Smith at Corbin Smith NFL. For Rams fans, whose house? It's Locked On Rams House, and shout out to the Big 12 out there. Shout out to the